For thousands of years, men could do no more than look up at the night sky with the naked eye. Then, in the early 17th century, telescopes were invented, and our whole view of the universe changed. The first great telescope observer was, of course, Galileo, who made a series of spectacular discoveries with his small refractor. He saw the crater of the moon, that orbiting the planet Jupiter were 4 bright satellites, that Saturn had a strange appearance in his telescope. This were later seen to be the rings, and the myriad stars that formed the dusty band of the Milky Way. In 1671, Sir Isaac Newton presented the first reflecting telescope to the Royal Society, and as telescopes became more and more effective, our knowledge of the universe increased. The largest refractors were built at the end of the 19th century, such as the 40-inch at the Yerkes Observatory in the United States, brought into use in 1895. However, a lens has to be supported all round its edges, and if too large, it will distort under its own weight, so probably the Yerkes refractor will never be surpassed. This disadvantage, of course, does not apply to mirrors. In 1917, the largest reflector was the Hooker 100-inch at Mount Wilson. This remained in the class of its own until 1948, when the Hale 200-inch was completed at Mount Palomar. Today, there are reflecting telescopes of many kinds. Some have segmented mirrors. For example, each of the 2 giant Keck telescopes has a 9.8-meter mirror made of 36 segments. To get the best seeing conditions, the telescopes sit at almost 14,000 feet on Mauna Kea in Hawaii. In Chile, in the Atacama Desert, where it rains on average only once every 100 years, the air is particularly clear, still, and dry. Here we find the 4 8.2-meter mirrors of the Very Large Telescope, or VLT. Each has produced many breathtaking images of faint, distant objects. But by next year, the light from these 4 large mirrors will be coherently combined by an interferometer. And in this mode, the telescope will operate as a 120-meter mirror with an angular resolution of 1 milliarc second. But however large and well-placed these telescopes are, they have one common disadvantage. They have to peer through the Earth's dirty, unsteady atmosphere. And the only way to overcome this is to go up into space. In 1990, NASA launched the Hubble Space Telescope, the HST, which orbits 600 kilometers above the Earth, which gives its 2.4-meter mirror an advantage, and it too produces superb images, such as this deep field image, showing thousands of faint galaxies which were first seen by the HST. It's not only the increasing size of telescopes which counts, it's methods too. For decades, we depended upon the photographic plate, and now that's being superseded by the CCD, the charged couple device. Instead of a conventional film-bearing camera, an electronic camera is used, which has a charged couple device, or CCD, to collect the light. A CCD has a mosaic of tiny sensors, converting the light into electric charges, and that in turn can be fed into a computer to produce the image. Their big advantage is that they are far more sensitive than any photograph, and therefore they can allow fainter objects to be imaged. In this program, we're going to show you how CCDs are used, and we've come to Long Crendon in Oxfordshire, and behind me is the dome of the new, very exciting Crendon Observatory. Now, I'm going to show you 2 photographs. Both are of the same object, the Crab Nebula, a supernova remnant 6,000 light-years away. Here they are. Now, one of these photographs was taken with the VLT, or Very Large Telescope in Chile, part of the world's most powerful telescope. The other was taken right here in Crendon. Now, which is which? Look carefully. In fact, the Crendon picture is one at the top. Now, what's remarkable is this observatory is owned by Gordon Rogers, an amateur observatory, as you can see, marvellous pictures, and those 2 images are really very alike. So we've come down here to ask Gordon Rogers just how it's done. Well, Gordon, we are delighted you can join us on the sky tonight. It's a most impressive observatory. Will you be kind enough to take us on a guided tour?
Now we're standing in an ash dome, which was made near Chicago.
Yes. What diameter is the dome?
The diameter is 10 feet 6 inches.
And of course the heart of the whole observatory is this splendid telescope.
Yes, the telescope is Meade 16-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain, and on top of it rides the Takahashi 5-inch refractor.
What do you use that for mainly?
Use that mainly for the larger objects, as you know, where some galaxies are huge. Andromeda is 5 times as wide as the Moon, and even with the Takahashi I can only get 1/5 of Andromeda.
The most important device, obviously, is the CCD.
Yes, this is the CCD camera, which has 2 chips. One large chip for imaging purposes, and a small chip on which to place the guide star for the purposes of guiding the telescope. The light path comes down through the telescope, through the robotic focuser, which can be operated from the computer room, then through the adaptive optics unit.
I think some people may not know quite what that is.
Now that to me is an amazing piece of apparatus. It comprises a computer-controlled mirror which enables fine adjustments for the tracking of the telescope. In fact, if you're lucky enough to get a really bright guide star, you can then guide as many as 50 times per second, and at that rate the unit will start to compensate for the atmospheric movement. So having passed through the adaptive optics unit, the light path goes to the colour filter here. Yes. That enables you to place in the light path filters either clear, red, green or blue.
Well, it's a most impressive observatory, but of course that's only the start. Much of your work is done not in the dome itself, but down in the study.
Down to the computer room, yes.
So let's go down there.
Right.
Coming down here to the study, I'm immediately faced with not one computer, but 2. Why the pair, Gordon?
Well, Patrick, there are 2 computers in that I use this one to control the telescope and this computer to control the CCD camera.
You actually move the telescope from here, in fact.
You operate the telescope by manipulation with this software system. I can enlarge the scale of where the telescope is pointing now, and the telescope is pointing at Venus. I can click on an object elsewhere and the telescope will train to it.
And of course the photographs come up on the next computer.
Photographs come up on this computer. That is an original photograph, and the focusing is done by watching the guide star on this computer and married up with the readout on the focusing device there.
So when you're observing, you're not actually in the dome itself at all.
I hope not to be in the dome too much, but there are times when I have to go up there.
The observatory is amazingly well equipped. What first sparked off your interest?
Well, my interest was sparked on the 13th of June 1994, when at about 9:30 I was looking at a new moon and saw something peculiar there. So that was what sparked me. I thought I needed to have the means to record something that I saw in the skies.
What did you actually see?
I saw 3 white blobs, one of them having a stem issuing from a crater.
Which crater?
I think it was in the vicinity of Sandbeck.
Oh, yes.
It was a stem of a milk chocolate colour which dissipated into a white cloud. At the time I thought it might have been volcanic activity. The next day everything was back to normal. Clearly wasn't. So I think what I actually saw was 3 asteroids hitting the moon. So that's what we got started, and that led to an 8-inch telescope which was mounted on the patio, and of course you set it up and then it became cloudy, you bring it in. Yes. I then bought the 16-inch Meade, which was housed in an observatory with a slide-off roof. But again, every time the weather clouded in, you lost focus, you lost the setup, and I thought I really need an observatory.
How long was it between the time you decided to build the observatory and first light?
It took about 15 months. Initially, of course, getting planning permission was a big hurdle to overcome. Oh, yes. But I was very fortunate in having tremendous support from neighbours, because without that I would not have got consent. And planning office were very helpful, so I count myself lucky to have got consent. I knew that the observatory was to be constructed on bad ground from previous experience. So the first step was to take soil samples to a depth of 11 metres, which entailed the construction then of 8 metres deep piles with a reinforced concrete cap.
Of course you had to go up, otherwise you had too many trees around.
Had to go up, and had to go up 20 feet So a 2 feet 6 inch pier with 8 tons of concrete was quite an undertaking. My son decided that he would construct this within a reinforced plastic sewer pipe, slip down over the reinforcing material. Our worry was it would burst, the concrete would burst at the bottom of the pier, and my wife Margaret would not be happy with 8 tons of going off concrete outside her kitchen window.
I'm sure she wouldn't.
And I heaved a great sigh of relief when the pier actually stood and the concrete had gone off.
When you had your pillar, what about getting the dome up there?
Well, originally the dome arrived by container, by sea container, and that was daunting when we opened the container and this myriad of parts was in front of us. The construction manual ran to 76 pages and was very good, and the parts did slot together, and it was less daunting than I feared it would be to build it.
And then getting the telescope in, was that a real problem?
We were fortunate to have the hoist for the construction, so to get the pedestal up was no difficulty. And we got the telescope up with the help of ropes. You
have your telescope, you're there. How long did it take you to become really fully operational and begin a proper observing program?
Well, I'm slowly getting there. It's taken a long time. I mean, I've been CCD imaging for 5 years now, and there's still an awful lot to learn.
Well, you're certainly getting splendid results. Can you take us through the procedure of getting a really good galaxy picture? The first thing you have to do, obviously, is to find it.
Indeed, and with the help of this software, finding it is no difficulty. I can click on the galaxy I want to go to, I command the telescope to go to that galaxy, and it'll do that. What I do then is I then find a bright star near that galaxy, I then go to that star, and I then focus the camera and also calibrate the camera, which is a necessary step.
Yes.
Having done that, I then go back to the galaxy, exactly centre the galaxy, and then hope to find there's a guide star centred on the guide ship. Usually there's not. I then have to find the guide star, fine-tune the focus, and then I'm ready to start imaging. This is the image as it downloads from the CCD camera. The first thing you have to do is to try and get rid of all these speckles, and you do that by subtracting a dark frame, which is an image of the same duration as the main exposure. That's the dark frame with the speckles. Take that away, you get the cleaned up frame. And then there's a further refinement of taking away a flat field. That's the flat field. Take that away, and you have a slightly improved image. The next application I applied here was a sharpening algorithm, which just brought out a little more detail, you'll see there. And then digital development, which brought out a lot of detail in the centre of the galaxy. So that is my black and white luminance image. The same treatment applied to red, green and blue gave those images.
Well, now you have your images, and next thing, combine them to make the final picture.
You put them together, and that's your colour picture. You'll see it's a little burned out in the middle. By layering a less exposed image beneath that image, I was able to bring out the centre section of the galaxy for the final picture there.
And you know, that picture is better than the best professional pictures would have been half a century ago. Congratulations, Gordon.
Amateurs are catching up.
They've caught up. And I think, Gordon, at this stage, if we may, can we please see some of your favourite pictures?
You certainly can, Patrick. Can we start with the Flame Nebula?
The Gaseous Nebula.
Gaseous Nebula, NGC 2024. You'll see that the guide star is a lovely bright guide star, but it's impinging on the green in the image here.
Yes, indeed.
But I was very pleased with the general image.
The Needle Galaxy this time.
Indeed. From your catalogue, object number 38 of Caldwell catalogue.
And look at the dark material there crossing the nucleus.
It's wonderful, absolutely stunning galaxy, one of my favourites.
It is indeed.
Then another galaxy, Whale Galaxy, again from your catalogue, at a distance of around 20 million light years.
You see a much fainter galaxy
You'll
down
see
there.
here, yes, there's a background galaxy
much more
there.
distant galaxy. That's a lovely spiral. Caldwell 12, or
Caldwell
NGC,
12.
and then Cepheus and another northern one. A lovely spiral.
Lovely spiral galaxy. Quite faint. It took a lot of luminance imaging. It was 1 hour of image to get the black and white.
Because they're not in Messier's catalogue, it's one of the faintest in the Caldwell, but you see a lot of detail there.
Indeed you do.
What about my own particular subject, the moon?
I did like this image of crater Clavius.
High terrace walls, a central peak, a string of craters across the floor, 145 miles across. I never tire of looking at that.
No, it's a beautiful object.
The old favourite, the horse's head in Orion, a mass of dark gas cutting out the light of stars beyond. A favourite object.
Yes, I think every astronomer holds that with a lot of affection.
And it's surprisingly difficult to see visually, that one.
It is indeed, yes.
And here, of course, the Orion Nebula, M42, the most photographed of all, I suppose, and the most famous nebula in the sky. That's a lovely picture, Gordon.
Yes, a stunning object, always gripping through the telescope. But of course, it's so bright that you have to take a number of images and vary the exposures so that you can have a short exposure for the base layer and then gradually longer images that can be merged together in the computer to get the core.
I think one point I ought to bring out here, these colours in the pictures, they are perfectly genuine, but of course, look through a telescope and you won't see them. They're not vivid enough.
Yes, you say very little colour through the telescope.
This observatory is as well equipped as any amateur observatory in the country, probably in the entire world, but not everyone can go to those lengths. Well, anyone who wants to get started, how do they go about it, Gordon?
Well, Patrick, astronomers may not be the prettiest or best dressed people in the world, but they are very friendly and very helpful. And if you join your local astronomy club, you'll find there's a wealth of experience and a very willing number of people, only too happy to point you in the right direction.
Of course, astronomically, I'm a dinosaur. My telescope is not computerized. It's a 15-inch reflector and used almost entirely upon the moon and planets.
You can today buy a fully computerized telescope for, I think, under £500 now, that you can set up and will actually find its way around the sky. But I have to blame you for the whole thing, because you were the man who told me where to go to buy my first proper telescope.
Well, it certainly paid off. Gordon, congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Patrick.
Don't forget our website, www.bbc.co.uk/Sky at Night, or CFAX page 620. And finally, on June the 21st, there's going to be a total eclipse of the sun. I'm afraid you won't see it from here. You've got to go to Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, or Mozambique. And if you do decide to go, I hope you have better luck than I did in August 1999, sitting under an umbrella in Falmouth. Good night.